All right. Well, hello, everybody. MJ, good to see you. Icarus. Looks like Ryder is not loading my my README here for drawtogether.net, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and get to that in just a moment here. So, in terms of what's on our agenda tonight, we're going to pick up where we left off a week ago. And we're going to go ahead and work on trying to implement some sort of authorization and authentication scheme into our little Blazor application. And the reason why we're going to do this is so we can try to assign users some sort of persistent identity. That's really what we're going for here. Now, Christopher, who's joined us on a stream a couple of times, actually updated this pull request he sent me to go ahead and include a couple of other changes we made behind the scenes. And I wanted to take his changes out for a spin locally. So I'm going to go ahead and grab his latest version of this branch and fire it up and see how well things do inside JetBrains Rider, which is an alternative to Visual Studio. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. The other thing I wanted to go ahead and talk about briefly was this Twitter thread that I kicked off on Friday, and some of the members of our Twitch chat, like H3 and others, participated on here. But long story short, this was a... Oh, hey, Christopher. How's it going? We're about to feature your code in just a second here. Now, I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about this tweet here, and I apologize for the profanity, but it was born out of frustration. So I was reviewing some code, which I often do for work. I do it basically reviewing internal code on our own products here at Petabridge. I review our customers' code all the time as part of some of our engagements that we do. So, for instance, I get brought in to audit a code base or something like that. And then on top of that, as a just general open source developer, I have to review pull requests all the time. So it's something I spend quite a lot of time doing. I was legitimately triggered by something I saw in one of these code bases where a programmer was taking a piece of really sensitive data, and rather than basically recording a change to that data as like a new row in SQL Server, they were modifying the original row and overriding the old data that was there, and in the process actually destroying some business value, and not to mention damaging the auditability of the data that was there. And this could potentially have a pretty negative impact depending on how that's done. So I was just furious. That's like, why are programmers still engaging in this, where we treat data that has really critical business value as like mutable by default, where most programmers tend to essentially rely on database schema. And we go ahead and we park our object. We try to model it usually as a single row inside a database. And therefore, we need to change some of the properties of that object. We simply go ahead and modify the content of that row using, let's say, an update statement in SQL Server. And we lose the previous state of the object, but then we have just a net new state afterwards. My question, sort of that I kind of posed here, and it went somewhat viral, was asking, basically, like, why is this still the default? Shouldn't the default way, in the age of, let's say, data storage and processing power being infinitely cheap, and I'll go ahead and drop a link to this in chat, by the way, in case you want to read the whole thread. Why in this day and age is this still the default? Should the default not be using event sourcing, which is basically double entry accounting for all of your data? If I go and take a look, for instance, at our, let's see, drawtogether.server, and I take a look at, let's say, our paint instance actor, every single one of these add strokes calls is an event that's going to go ahead and push additional strokes into our little list right here. And so effectively, this list of all strokes that have ever been done is our event source. We're always perpetually appending to the end of it. And so users always receive the deltas from that. In the event that we need to go ahead and rebuild the entire picture, we can go ahead and send over SignalR this entire set of stroke data if we want to do that. So this is essentially a self-auditing data structure, and it's very easy to go ahead and see that modeled when you're using actors. If you're using event-driven programming, which is what we're doing with Akka.net, using event sourcing as a way to store and persist data and then replay it later, those two tend to go together very well, like peanut butter and chocolate. So my question is, why aren't we doing this by default? Because in this business case I was looking at, it'd be a lot safer, and not to mention it would actually provide a lot more useful information to both the business and the customer in this case, maintaining all the set of changes that happened to this customer's account inside their system. So that was a question I kind of raised. And the answer I got that pretty much satisfied me was that, well, event sourcing is not something that is taught in most programming curriculum in school. And therefore, it's something you only kind of encounter when you're engaging with, let's say, social programming, social media. So it comes up, if you are following people like Greg Young, or any of the domain-driven development people, or Udi Dahan on Twitter, or maybe if you're on, let's say, I don't know, Hacker News or the .NET subreddit, you might come encounter with it. So I'm actually in the process of a large event sourcing project right now. I'm at the very beginning stages of it, which is called event storming, which is where you're basically trying to determine what all of the critical events are in your domain, and then you kind of work backwards from that to go ahead and try to model projections, essentially views of that data that someone might be able to actually go ahead and consume a little bit further downstream. So that's something that we kind of spent a little bit of time touching on at the end of last week. Now, I don't want to go beat around the bush that much longer talking about the event sourcing stuff, but the bigger point. Let's see, does Akka.NET examples contain event sourcing? Yes, they do. The biggest ones I can think of that use event sourcing pretty heavily, I'll go ahead and link to the Petabridge version of this, but it would be our cluster workshop. Let me go ahead and grab this. I'll drop a link to this in chat. This cluster workshop, I'm in the process of updating this right now because it actually has several lessons that are all built into it. This is designed to teach people. It's kind of a learn by doing course, really similar to Akka.NET Bootcamp. It's designed to go ahead and teach people how to run an Akka.NET cluster inside Kubernetes. And it's basically meant to kind of help people who want to use Akka.NET Cluster in production know how to kind of operationalize it and be able to continuously deploy it without having any downtime and that type of thing. That's kind of what this course is for. I had to shoot a bunch of YouTube videos for it. This used to be part of a live workshop that we taught in 2019. We were planning on doing another live workshop like this in 2020, but obviously the pandemic kind of put a stop to that. So I'm going to take all the lectures that go along with this and record it as YouTube videos. But this uses event sourcing pretty heavily. And it also uses CQRS, which is another architectural pattern that tends to appear pretty often with event sourcing. So this sample basically has some stock trading sort of actors that are placing bids and asks on different stock ticker symbols. We have some order book actors that are essentially event sourcing all those orders. And then when two orders match, where someone is willing to buy at a price someone else is selling, those two orders get matched and an event goes out, which marks those orders as filled on either side, on both sides of the trade. And we use Akka.persistence.query inside another process to go ahead. This is where the CQRS part kicks in, command query responsibility segregation. We listen to those match events and we use that to compute what's known as a volume weighted price, where you take the number of shares, multiply it times the price that was paid, and then you average that along with the previous prices that were paid. And this is actually how a lot of, let's say, equities and currency pairs and other things are priced in real time. So if you've ever, let's say, been interested in cryptocurrency or anything like that, the prices you're seeing on websites like CoinMarketCap are also volume-weighted prices. It's just that volume tends to be aggregated from several different exchanges rather than just one exchange. So that's what tends to kind of happen there. So this is a pretty good example of how to go ahead and do event sourcing, although this might be a little bit too big of an example, to be honest. But this is a good one that uses event sourcing pretty heavily. All right. Now, next thing I wanted to take a look at was Christopher's pull request. So Christopher, you went ahead, if I take a look at your files that you changed here, you basically went ahead and integrated some of these. We basically, I think, if I recall correctly, rather than using just individual circles to represent points, you actually turned everything into curves. Yeah, that's right, Bezier curves. And you combine this with our server-side debouncing. to go ahead and basically improve the throughput at the rate at which we can go ahead and add new graphics on the server. And then what's this change here? Use batching to combine. Let's see. Updated batching to combine adders with creating new connected strokes. Let's take a look at this. All right. So you're using a GUID to go ahead and represent a unique stroke. I'm assuming that's what that's for. And then you're giving us, rather than a single point, an array of points back here. And let's see. When we go ahead and call add points to connected stroke, we go ahead and do connected strokes.where as equals s.id, and we do points.add range. Okay. So let's see. Connected points, SSID, add range. We call status changed. Okay, so we should be able to add existing points to a current curve. Let's go ahead and see how well this works. So I'm going to go ahead and do fetch Christopher. And let's see, this is your development branch, I think. Yes, okay. So we go ahead and do get checkout. All right. Okay, so I'm technically on the detached head, but that's okay. Now, one thing I'm giving a try to tonight. So I've been using JetBrains Writer on a bunch of my personal projects yesterday and today, and it's been way faster than Visual Studio, but it still gives me the same level of like auto completion that ReSharper does in Visual Studio. So I've been enjoying this quite a bit. So I want to go ahead and actually try using it to do some Blazor stuff, which I've not yet done yet. All right. I'm not running a debugger or anything. Okie dokie. Let's see how this goes. We'll go to Paint, launch new session. Let's see. Now, are we having issues? Let's see. Looks like, yeah, we had an issue. We had this problem last time where it looked like it took SignalR a while to start up because the number of open ports was too low. All right. This looks pretty smooth, Christopher. So if I go ahead and let go, and I want to go ahead and just say change colors. Let's go ahead and change the cursor size. This looks great. This looks really good. Now, by the way, I had one idea for trying to enhance client-side performance some more, because we are still seeing some issues here with the rate of rendering, and I've got an idea, I think, on how we could possibly fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that in just a second. Although the one other thing I want to do, since we had this problem last time, is I want to check for open ports on Windows. Let's see. I think it's netstat. So let me do that. Yeah, let's take a look at this. Let me go ahead and go to an elevated shell here. All right. Let's just see if I've got too many open ports. Listening, established. Yeah, it looks like I've got a bunch of open ports again on this thing. I wonder if it's Brave that's been doing this. So if Brave's leaking ports, that's going to be a bit of a problem for me. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and do the best we can here. Although I should note, I don't really have this problem very often. But let's say if I go down to, oh, I don't know. Let me go ahead and grab, like, I got a PowerShell here. Repositories, Petabridge, Olympus. Go to Akka.net. Source, we'll go to examples. Cluster. Well, thank you very much, NVIDIA. That's helpful. Cluster. Oops, nope. Let me go to cluster. And then we'll go to samples cluster.simple. Let me go ahead and try running this real fast. This sample is going to spin up. And this is part of the Akka.net source code. This is going to spin up like a 4 or 5 node cluster. So that didn't take very long at all. So that felt like that took a lot less time than Blazor did. So I think there must be some sort of issue with Brave, maybe having trouble connecting to all these sockets. All right. Well, that's okay. We'll go ahead and carry on without it. But anyway, I'll show you my idea I have for trying to go ahead and improve the client-side rendering performance. Whoops, wrong window. And let me go ahead and let's see. Batched 0 create actions and did 1 add action. So we're not batching all that much at the moment. Rook, good to see you. And Christopher, you had another question here that I missed. I'm sorry about that. It could be cool if there was some way to say a component was done being rendered so that Blazor did not render the whole UI every time we call a state is changed. That is exactly what I'm going to take a look at, actually, is trying to go ahead and do partial rendering. Let's see. Hey, Aaron, complete novice here on event sourcing. But would you say that the event sourcing pattern depends on your domain, or should you use it everywhere? One of the people who engaged on that Twitter thread, I think, said it best. So here's the real value you get out of event sourcing, which is event sourcing, by the way, introduces a higher upfront cost than, let's say, using just a simple CRUD, create, read, update, delete model does in terms of your data model. I'm in the process of building kind of a fairly sophisticated event sourcing model right now for handling a domain that is expected to grow in complexity quite a bit over time. Those are the environments that you really want to use event sourcing inside of, is that if you know, it's kind of like pricing in uncertainty. If you know that your domain is probably going to change a lot over, let's say, the next several years, event sourcing, by preserving all those individual deltas and by separating your read and your write models from each other, gives you a lot of options for how you want to deal with that growth in the complexity of your domain over time, in a way that CRUD models don't really lend themselves to. So by using event sourcing and having it from day one, it gives you the ability to, let's say, take old data and run it on top of new code, or it gives you the ability to create new experiences from old data that you had before. And there's a lot of different, let's say, options you can perform with it. Now, one thing that, Christopher and I think Nelson Jimenez and some other viewers have mentioned with our paint, our draw together example, is we should try to materialize all of the strokes into a single shape and render that all at once, rather than redrawing the whole thing from scratch. That type of model is what's known as snapshotting, and that's totally compatible with event sourcing. The idea is, rather than replaying every event from the beginning of time up until, let's say, the most recently applied event, which for really large event sources can be cost prohibitive, you want to go ahead and take a point in time representation of data that compresses all those different individual events together, and you serve that first, and then you event source everything that happens after that snapshot was taken. That's what like Akadot persistence does, for instance, which is what, if we're persisting these drawings, that's what we would definitely be using to save some of these strokes, is to use Akadot persistence to go ahead and record all that data. So your next question, are you saying that it depends on your rate of change and maintainability? If you're fairly certain that your requirements aren't going to change much, then you could probably get away with not using event sourcing, and you can implement something that's cheaper and basically save on developer time that way. However, if you basically say, okay, I know my requirements are going to change, but I don't know how, and I don't know what sorts of things the business is going to ask me to do, then building in event sourcing from day one, in my opinion, preserves optionality better. Now, that being said, the question that really determines whether you should do event sourcing is, what is the value of saving those deltas over time, right? So I'll give you an example. In my Twitch streams here, saving the chat, which is like a delta, each one of those chat messages is a little delta. It's useful to have that up until, let's say, my videos on demand, let's say, are more than a couple weeks old. No one's going to go through and necessarily want to take a look at all of the individual chat messages said 10 years ago. That's probably not going to be all that interesting. So there's a little bit of, let's say, recency that factors into how valuable that data is. But let's say instead of chat data, let's say I'm storing financial transaction data. Well, in the United States, a business needs to maintain 7 years of records, because that's the maximum window. The Internal Revenue Service, that's our tax agency in the U.S., that's the maximum audit window the IRS can request records for. So you might want to go ahead and maintain, if you're, let's say, selling to doing a business-to-business software, you might want to go ahead and maintain an event source that has financial transactions. Every single little change going all the way back, and maybe detailed audit logs to go along with it. So it depends a lot on your domain, how valuable that data is over a long period of time. But generally speaking, all applications can derive value from preserving those deltas, separating the read and write models, and essentially projecting the things you see on screen as an end user as the sum of the parts, rather than just saving everything as just one big object over and over again. Okay, good. Hey, I'm glad that explanation helped. Now, Christopher, we're going to deal with your suggestion here, which is the state has changed portion. Let me go ahead and find in our Blazor pages here. Let's see, paint.razor. All right, now state has changed. We call down here, inform the Blazor UI. The UI needs updating. Let's go ahead and take a look and see Blazor partial render. Let's see if there's a way we can go ahead and do that. Let's see. Partial classes and layouts. Let's see. Render fragment and that part of the life cycle. That might be interesting for us. Let's see. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. I always do my Googling off screen. Okay. Using render fragment parameters in Blazor WebAssembly. In addition to sending parameters to the component, we can send the content as well. This is very useful when we have, let's say, HTML markup that we want to use inside a component. That's exactly what we're doing, in fact, right? We're adding these SVG components to the inside of, let's say, our little SVG tag here. Let's see how we can use the render fragment in our home component. Christopher, have you ever worked with render fragment before in any of your work you've done on Blazor so far? Because I've never even touched it. Or do that some. Okay. So let's take a look. So a render fragment has all this child content in here. Okay. We decorate it with a parameter attribute. All right. And how does that work? Let's see. Okay. Next thing we want to do is modify the home component file and replacing the code inside the first P tag with our newly created property, which is newly created property is child content. Okay. Right. Okay. Render attributes, capture unmatched values, skating parameter color, parameter visit shop content. Okay. So if I call set parameter async, on initialize and on initialize async, on after render, I want to show header modal window. Let's see. This method is called each time the component is rendered. So here's what I'm thinking about doing. Is I want to go ahead and try to actually, let's say, suppress some of the renders that are happening inside our application right now. So I want to go ahead and see if we can play with that on the client UI side a little bit. So let's see. Because I think each time we're doing this, we're going through and we're adding a new stroke to this. So what I'd like to go ahead and do is once a stroke is complete, and we're not going to add any more points to it anymore, or basically maybe even only render an individual stroke. That's something I'd like to go ahead and try to do. So I wonder if there's a way we can re-architect this so we're not iterating over this loop over and over again and redrawing everything. I think that's where the UI lag is coming from in this sample. So let's see, path data, points. Okay. So let's see. Blazor replace for loop with partial render. Like, I like it if we could go ahead and modify each path element individually. That would be really useful. Let's see. Okay, for each widget and components. Let's see. Render fragments as declared in code. Here's something else I'm going to take a little look at here. All right, let's grab this. Another option is declare render fragments rather than separate components here. Okay, for each widget and widget. Stack read only render fragment. No. Then we for each other render fragment and render each one. Building your own render tree. This might be something worth doing. Doing our own custom render tree here. Build our own render tree. Let's see. Basically what we want to do is, let's say, modify only the stroke being modified or only add the new stroke being added, not render everything else. That would help us solve this problem. So one thing that you're doing in here is we have a dictionary. We do have a little dictionary that's connected stroke. We do cursor down. And then as the cursor moves, we add those connected points. And then when the cursor's up, the stroke is done. This stroke should not need to be rendered after the cursor up event is finished. So if there's some way we can go ahead and make it so we're dynamically adding new points to this canvas and possibly modifying them, but not necessarily iterating over them again and again. We should want to do here, where it's like we can go ahead and I think part of the problem is calling that sort of calling that set data methods, causing it to re-render everything, which is slowing it down after a little while. So we can mess with the render tree. That I'm totally up for doing. Render fragment, render widget type builder. Okay. Couple benefits of this virtual DOM. Let's see. Is this not done yet? This issue? Let's take a look. Okay, looks like it got added. Okay, so that's all done. This is actually, by the way, funnily enough, so I see Steve Sanderson here, who I think is one of the architects of Blazor. He implemented this exact style of rendering in Knockout.js, which is a big JavaScript framework that he put together that I use pretty heavily in my first business. So that's exactly the sort of thing I'm going for here. Let's see, let me go ahead and stop running my server in the background. That should be shut down now. Okay, let's give this a shot. Let's go ahead and see if we can go ahead and add a couple of... Let's go ahead and see if we can go ahead and adjust this a little bit so we can get a bit more efficient with how we're rendering things. So, render fragment sounds good. Maybe each stroke should be its own render fragment. That's not a bad idea. So we can try doing that. We for each render fragment and render each one. Best practices. Let's take a look at this. WebAssembly performance best practices. Optimize rendering speed. Avoid unnecessary rendering component subtrees. Yep. That's what we're doing right now, is we're accidentally rendering everything. Override should render. Should render app on flight ID, previous flight ID. Should only be concerned about skipping rendering subtrees. Virtualization. Yeah, this is what we're running into right now. Let's see. To address this, Blazor provides the virtualized component that creates the appearance of scroll behaviors of an arbitrarily large list, but only renders the list items that are within the current scroll viewport. Nope, that doesn't really matter to us. Provide thousands of component instances. Let's see. Inline child components into their parents. Let's see. The preceding example code, the chat message display component is defined in here. We're actually looking at kind of doing the opposite of this. Define reusable render fragments in code. You don't think dynamic components are relevant? Well, why don't we go ahead and give render fragment a try here? Why don't we try modeling each of our Why don't we go ahead and give this a shot? Why don't we try doing a render fragment? Yeah, here we go. Chat message, let's see. Why don't we go ahead and give this a try? Doing render fragment with those points. So by the way, just to do something, let's say, simple here. Why don't we go ahead and say, all right. In fact, you know what? Let me go ahead and make this full screen. Just let me do that. Okay. Do that. Put that on the left. All right, let's give render fragment a try. See if we can get things to go a little faster that way. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here. Protected string path data. Return result. This points. Path data can be made private. I think it can also be made static. All right, let's do that. On next, GUID UID. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and create, where's my little, let's see, connected stroke here. And go to definition. GUID ID points string stroke into stroke width. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and do private. Where's my little chat message? Here we go. Private render fragment. We'll call this a connected stroke. Stroke render. Strokes. I guess I'll just do S. Oh, I gotta do this thingy. This little builder syntax. Okay. Does not suggest the match name builder. Whatevs. We'll go ahead and give that a shot. All right. Then in here, render tree builder. Okay, I got you. So I'll go ahead and grab that. Christopher, I'm just literally throwing shit on the wall and seeing what sticks. in case you're wondering. You know what? Another thing we might want to try to do is maybe rather than rendering, I wonder if it's a better idea to compute the path data. To go ahead and do that on write rather than do it on read. That's another possibility. We'll give that a try next. I'll go ahead and go up here and we'll go ahead and do, yeah, we'll refactor that. And then I'll go ahead and do, I don't even remember what I called this. Let's see, user, render fragment, stroke render. This code probably needs a refactor. Okay. I have no idea if this will actually help anything. Let's see if this helps. We're doing this for science, you know? Seeing some lag again. That's probably signal R related. Hopefully. Either that or I seriously F something up. Let's take a look in Writer. Yep, there we go. All my events just went through all at once. Well, that doesn't appear to have helped very much. Yeah, I don't think that's not necessarily doing it for us. Let's see. What's the advice say on this stuff? Let's see, where was it? WebAssembly performance best practices. Don't receive too many parameters. For a non-static field method or property that can't be referenced by field initializers, such as a title template, the following. Use a property instead of a field for the render fragment. Protected display title. This approach provides the benefit of reusing render logic without per component overhead. However, it doesn't have the benefit of being able to refresh its subtree the UI independently, nor does it have the ability to skip running that since there's no component boundary. Okay. Brooke, let's see. I went to the Reactor presentation online today. They stated that Akka.net was a similar competing technology. I'm trying to think if we could use them together, but Reactor's barrier to entry are high as hell. Which Reactor presentation was this, Brooke? I was doing a whole bunch of event sourcing code today, so I didn't get a chance to see much of what was going on .NET Twitter. Let's see. All right, well, Christopher, although it was online on Zoom, okay, so it might have been a Microsoft or an on.NET meeting or something. Well, I'm sure there's cases where Reactor and Akka.NET can be used. Akka.NET's fairly agnostic in terms of the environments it can run inside of, although obviously it can't run on Blazor WebAssembly, unfortunately, but it can run a lot of other places. Oh, you know, that might have been the .NET Virtual Meetup, Rook. That might be what that was. The .NET Virtual Users Group. That might have been it. Ah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I should ask about doing an Akka.NET presentation there sometime. Another idea from Christopher. Another idea would be to move the path into another component and to connect the bind stroke parameter and react when the parameter is set, and then call status change to update the UI locally from that path. That's exactly what I was thinking of doing next, was basically I want to cache the render output for strokes that aren't being updated. That way the only time we have to re-render the whole tree right here is when we add a new stroke, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. So let me go ahead and close that real quick. Now, let's see. One thing I don't know. Components. Circle. Let's see if I can add. Let's see. Add a new item. Oh my goodness. They actually have this is fantastic. Writer's UI for adding Blazor components might actually be better than Microsoft's. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and call this... we'll call this curve. What will be the name of this component? All right. Yeah, sure. Curve. Okay, and I'm going to take some of your code, Christopher. Yeah, I'm with you. I see what you're thinking, Christopher. Let's go ahead and give that a try. Let's go ahead and let me see if I can go double window here. Perfect. That was easy. Okay, cool. Stroke render. I just did this a second ago. Let's see. Yeah, where's my stupid render fragment? Here we go. Do that. And then I need to go ahead and define some parameters. Move that back. Let's see, and I've got my little circle parameters here. Oh, wow, this is pretty spacious. Let me go ahead and shut my server down. Okay. Public, and let's see, I believe this is a set of points. Point. Points. And then, let's see. We have, let's see, public string group. And then, excuse me, we also have stroke width. Oh, you thought to simply have a single parameter of type connected stroke? I see what you mean. Yeah, I guess these other properties don't really change, do they? Well, yeah, why don't we give this a shot? Yeah, that's probably the easiest, actually. And one thing I do want to do is I want to move this path data function. One thing I do want to kind of experiment with potentially, Christopher, is actually computing this on potentially moving the calculation of this either onto the doing it on the server or basically doing it on write rather than on render. That's something I'm interested in taking a look at, but I think for the time being, this is probably okay. Let's see. Then I think we need to go ahead and override. Let's see. This is on parameters set. Method is invoked when the component is received parameters from its parent render tree, and incoming values have been assigned to those properties. Yeah, I don't think... Just to err on the side of caution, Christopher, that was my same question too, is if I go and modify the content of this connected stroke, I don't necessarily know if that's going to go ahead and cause this to get triggered. So I think I'll go ahead and err on the side of caution and denormalize everything in here. Even though your argument for sticking a connected stroke was perfectly sensible, I just don't know enough about Blazor to know if we're going to get the right behavior out of the gate. So every time we go ahead and set this, let's see, list point, oops, this is our own point structure, I think. Yeah, all these points. Ew. Points. Public green stroke. Let's see. And then let's go ahead and add a little integer for stroke width. Let's see. You could create a public method instead and call that when you update the list of points in the other page. Yep. Yeah, you could do that. Which we probably need to do anyway. And I don't see a single stroke necessarily having all of that, having all that complexity there. Tell you what. You know what? I'm with you. Public, we'll go ahead and call it connected stroke. Public, async task. Let's see. Modify stroke. Let's see. Oh yeah, you know what else I gotta grab? Is that path data method. I need a copy of that. Go ahead and move that out here. Let's see, let's do that. Points at 0. Actually, you know what I kind of like? I keep going back and forth. I suck. I'm sorry. I keep going back and forth on this. But you know what I kind of like? I like this idea of, let's say, a public int. Set parameter. Public string group. All right, hear me out. I'm going to go ahead and modify this to some extent. Now, one thing I'm going to try to do you'll need a list of curve elements in paint.razor files so you can invoke this function in a binded reference. Oh yeah, we absolutely will. I'm going to go ahead and basically save the GUID next to the instance of each of these components in a dictionary is what I'm going to do. That way we can go ahead and concurrently have multiple concurrent users all modify those strokes at the same time, but independently of each other. So I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a IEnumerable, a point, new points, and let's see, which points, and I'm going to go ahead and say stroke. All right, we'll go ahead and make that. I guess we start and we go ahead and call push points. We'll go ahead and do points, add range, new points. That way we're not directly setting this stuff. And then we should go ahead and say, let's see, what's this little method down here? All right, let's give that a try first. Actually, you know what? I guess I don't really need that. I'll just make this a void method. You know what I could do? Well, I guess this is probably fine. We'll see how that goes. All right, now paint.razor. Let me go ahead and get rid of this. Don't need that anymore. Let's see. It is in the plans to create required parameters, so we don't need to continue to guard with default values. Well, that's good to know. That is good to know. All right, let me go ahead and get rid of that. Next, let's see. What I'll go ahead and do instead of our set of connected strokes here. Good. We'll go ahead and do a new curve. And we'll go ahead and call this connected strokes. Field can be made read-only. Actually, damn. Let's see. No, I guess I really do need connected strokes still. Keep that. But we'll go ahead and do, this will stay a list. Keep that as a list. We'll go ahead and do a dictionary. Let's see, GUID curve. Finger strokes. Just new. And then we'll go ahead and do, let's see, add connected strokes. Where do you get called? Add points to connected stroke. You know, if I do the GUID thing, that might actually help doing that little dictionary. Let's see, where's on mouse down? Cursor down. Where does current connected stroke get used? Just down here. You know, we should probably do. Change that to a GUID. current connected stroke. We'll go ahead and do. Actually, you know what? I think probably okay without that. Let me move this back. So we'll go ahead and store the GUID of the current curve that we're drawing. And we'll go ahead and say var new curve. Curve. Let's say stroke. Color. And so we'll go ahead and say stroke width equals cursor size. And then we'll go ahead and do, yeah. Go ahead and store the ID. Right there. Ah, I see why you're using the current connected stroke. We still really kind of need that, don't we? Okay. Well, let's see. New curve. Because we do need to go ahead and invoke a method directly on that UI component, but this is integrated with how our server side stuff works. And we can't serialize that. Current connected stroke. On next, new point, offset X, offset Y. Go ahead and do that. On next, current connected stroke to ID. Actually, this is probably okay. We just have to go and create the connected stroke the first time. Okay, let's do that. Actually, you know what? We'll go ahead and go back to connected stroke. Actually, no. No, we don't need to. I think this should work. We actually don't need the object. We just need the ID, which is what we've been using this whole time. And your on next methods here. So we'll hang on to that. Okay, that was good. I'm gonna go ahead and call this actually current stroke. Okay, got that. And then I need my events. Add connected stroke. So whenever one of these gets called, one of these add connected stroke methods here, what I can go ahead and do is I can add those to my set of connected strokes. You know, if I go and modify the actors on the back end, I actually don't need these objects anymore. Yeah, I don't think I do. If I go ahead and do render strokes, here's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and do render strokes. And you know what? It actually does make more sense if I go back to curve. If I go ahead and make this as a parameter to set the initial ones, that actually makes a little bit more sense. Okay. New curve, and we'll go ahead and do points. C.stroke. D.stroke width. Oops, hold on. I did that somewhat goofily. Stroke width. Oh, did I not make this settable? Let's take a look at curve again. Oh, yeah. I did not make that sound. Okay, that was good. For the Blazor UI that we need updating, that is correct. If I go ahead and do connected stroke. Render stroke stop. Let's see. Values. And then I'll go ahead and do connected stroke. How do I force this to render? I guess I just do that. Or do I go ahead and do builder? Add content. Let's see, how would I go ahead and render this content here? Let's see. Yeah, how would I go ahead and do that? You just create a curve tag and ref to your current object. All right, tell me if I'm doing this right. So I go ahead and do curve, ref. Connected stroke. Is that right? Or, excuse me. Like that. Does that look right, Christopher? Or do I got to do the little @ symbol here? While you're doing that, I got to update some of the code down below. Not sure if it needs to be before or after the ref. I guess we will find out. This looks right to me. Looks like IntelliSense is picking it up. We'll find out, I guess. Well, good. Well, thanks for letting me know about that. I didn't know that was the right way to do it. Next, add points to connected stroke. Check this out. Render strokes ID. Just to be safe. I can get rid of this. Okay. Let me go ahead and try building this. See if this works. Component points should not be set outside of its component. That seems a little grumpy. Let's see. Yeah, I wonder if we're not doing this right. Yeah, you can't initialize components like that. All right. That's fair, I guess. Let's see. You just set the parameters in the tag. Okay. You know what? I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. Let's see. Is there a way to go ahead and basically set, let's say, an ID on this curve here and be able to go ahead and reference it that way? Like, is there a way I can query the DOM in Blazor? That might be helpful. Yeah, I guess I need to set the parameters in the tag. Okay. All right. Let's go back to doing it this way. Render strokes. Let's go ahead and do render strokes. Well, let me do this. Do it that way. And then go ahead and do render strokes. There's got to be some way I can go ahead and modify that element. Yeah, I want like a two-way binding between this. Well, not two-way binding, a one-way binding. Let's see. Well, all right. Let's give that a try. All right. Oops. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and give this a shot. That's where you use the ref. It's basically, oh, I can go ahead and basically refer to a to the connected stroke object for that. Let's see. All right. Blazor still seems like it's going pretty dang slow. Haven't seen my little Signal R connection go through yet. All right, let's go ahead and pump this up. That's not a valid color. That is. This looks like it's performing a lot better to me. Let's go ahead and do. Yeah, I think this is I think this could just be my, you know, lying eyes deceiving me here, but I think we've actually got some better render performance than what we had before. Well, hey, Rick, you. I'm getting a raid. Well, that's fantastic. That's never happened to me before. Thank you very much. How about that? Hey guys, I'm doing pretty well. We just figured out how to go ahead and try to speed up some of our render performance here. Thank you. Very kind of you. I appreciate that. We stream every Tuesday and Thursday night from 7 p.m. Central Time to 9 p.m. And normally I drink bourbon and scotch on Thursday nights. All right, well, Christopher, I think we've got our render performance issues figured out here. So we're working a little bit with Blazor, trying to go ahead and speed things up. Yeah, thanks, Rick. I really appreciate it. All right, wow. Rating party, that's pretty fun. I guess I should try that sometime with this channel. All right, let me go ahead and try pumping this up. So Christopher, what do you think? Do you think we've got the render performance up a little bit? I still think there's probably more work to be done here. But this looks good to me. Hey, bourbon streams are the way to do it, man. Never any problem with any of that stuff. All right. Well, it looks like this is still slowing down a little bit here, but we're in a much better shape than we were before. Let's go ahead and try a new paint session. We're still definitely having some SignalR performance issues. Don't we call status change in paint.razor when we add new points? Actually, no, we don't. We don't call that anymore. So these are just setting the parameter directly. So I don't believe we do. The only time we actually call, whoops, this is the totally wrong program. The only time we actually call state changed is when we're actually adding new connected strokes. That's the only time we actually do it. So you know what? Maybe we don't need to do that here either. So let me go ahead and stop our server. And we'll try running this again. Oh yeah, we're using Rider. It's a lot faster than Visual Studio. We tried doing stuff in VS Code, but I've come to the conclusion that it's been found wanting in the performance department. All right, so we definitely, I think I'm pretty sure that Brave is leaking WebSocket connections here because we had this problem last week, and that's why it's taking so long for SignalR to connect. There we go. You can see our server-side batching is going through. And look at this. We're able to get rid of the whole draw render tree thing, Christopher. It looks like it's going way faster. All right, sounds good, Rick. We'll see you in a bit. This looks like it's a lot smoother to me. We just got rid of those should render functions. Look at that. That's really going fast. Let's see. This looks pretty dang smooth to me. Now it is rendering this entire curve over and over again. So there might be something to be said for fragmenting it. Either that or maybe finding a way to compress the Bezier curve. That might be another way of doing it. Now, a question I had for you, Christopher, since I'm not familiar with the math. I keep opening the wrong damn program. It's tough to beat that habit of opening up Visual Studio over and over again. I had a question for you on the little Bezier curve calculation that we're doing here. This can be computed iteratively, can't it? Where, let's say, rather than having to recompute the entire curve over and over again, we could, in theory, go ahead and compute this based on just the new points that we've added. That way that we can go, this so from like a functional programming point of view, this would be like currying to some extent. Do you think that's something that we could do to modify this function to help improve render performance? Is that the path data, or actually, would that not affect path data at all though? If we're only computing the delta versus recomputing the entire thing? Christopher, do you think that would help at all? I'm just trying to... Oh, you know, we do go ahead and call state render change there, but not when we're modifying these points. Yeah, that would make sense, but I don't think it's a heavy computation, but it might be. Well, that'd be another thing we can try playing with. But I think this is, I think moving everything to its own component definitely appears to have helped a lot. Definitely, it's going a lot faster. All right, go ahead and get rid of that. Yeah, that's going a lot faster. Oops. See if I can do that. Now it's starting to slow down a little bit again. That's because our render tree is probably pretty complicated at this point in terms of the number of different shapes on screen. Now if I go ahead and do AA, we'll go ahead and do 40 here, do a really big cursor. It's definitely starting to slow down some. So we still just did a change. It was working when we removed it now. Yeah, so if I go ahead and shut everything down, let me go ahead and do that. That should be shut down in just a second there. I'll go ahead and fire it all back up. let me go ahead and try running this again. So this has no status change calls at all. Other than when we're adding and removing users, which doesn't happen very often. I guess I could, in theory, get rid of that too. If I really wanted to, I could just turn it into a parameter. All right, let me go ahead and close that. Close that session too. All right. Now I should probably design this so Blazor will go ahead and just block until that socket becomes available. All right, so let's go ahead and wait. We should see a little flurry of events down here once SignalR actually goes through. Looks like I've got to reboot my machine again in order to get all that to work nicely. All right. Alternatively, I could try this in another browser. Okay, there we go. So this looks pretty snappy. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, it looks to me like after we start adding a trivial number of points, it might still be refreshing everything when we do this. Oh, that seems to be going pretty fast. All right, go ahead and let go of that. Let's go ahead and do this. Set a bigger cursor size. And that seems to actually be going okay. I don't know. There might still be some rendering going on that shouldn't be happening there. Although that seems to be going all right. Let's go ahead and do FF. More tan colors. So this definitely feels, although here's the thing, when I go ahead and I start drawing in circles like this actually seems okay. But I'm definitely noticing a bit of a slowdown once we get beyond a certain number of shapes. So we've removed all the status change stuff, but we definitely have some like latency when we're doing our rendering performance here. That being said, I think this is a pretty nice set of improvements. So let me go ahead and get rid of the rider stuff here. Well, let's see. I guess I should probably go ahead and add this to like my real git ignore. So let me go ahead and do that. Grab all that stuff. Go and try to get it.net. Open that in code. Sure. Someone's going to need to write a pop-up blocker for Visual Studio Code at the rate things are going. Okay. All right. Here we go. Get rid of that stuff. Okay. Okay, well, that managed to not ignore anything in the idea folder. So that's kind of useless. Let's give that another try. Yeah, why not just go ahead and say, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and ignore the entire, let's say, .idea folder. Oh, look at that. Okay. Added separate curve. Component. All right, let's go ahead and save that. So it looks like everything's working without that component being there. I'll go ahead and enter my GPG information off screen. That looks great. Although I'm on a detached head. Whoops. Let me go ahead and grab this. Check out the curve. I'm sure I butchered the spelling on that. I apologize in advance. All right, go and push that up. Go back to our little repository. We'll go ahead and merge all your changes in. And just to make sure you get an adequate amount of credit, I'm going to go ahead and not squash it. There you go. Voila. You are now, if I go ahead, looks like I nuked a whole bunch of other pull requests as part of doing that. Voila, you are now, if I take a look at our commit graph here, you should be Let's see, contributors. You should be neck and neck with me on commits for this repository so far. Yeah, there you go. All right, that looks perfect. There you go. You're now immortalized into the annals of drawtogether.net history. I think that's probably a good place to go ahead and let sleeping dogs lie with respect to trying to improve render performance. There's more work we could do there, but I think we should work a little bit less on the drawing and a little bit more on the together part. So let's go ahead and take a look at doing some authorization. All right. So I'll go ahead and close that out. Okay, get rid of some of this. Okay, ASP.NET Core, Blazor, authorization, authentication. A subject which I'm sure everybody has been sitting on the heels of their feet, waiting to hear about all the exciting permissions and sign-in manager and all that great stuff. That's fantastic. Great. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a look at trying to implement this stuff. Okay. The Blazor server project template can be configured for authentication when the project is created. We're probably going to steal some stuff from here. So, what can we do? Set of authentication mechanisms for ASP.NET Core projects. Let's see. Scaffold identity without existing authorization with authorization. Okay. Additional claims and tokens from external providers. Azure App Service on Linux with Identity Server. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Quick start. Add sign-in with Microsoft with ASP.NET Core application. Okay, let's take a look at some of this stuff. I just see they have an Azure subscription. That's so fascinating. No, well, let's get that one. Okay. Let's go ahead and do scaffold identity into a Blazor server project. Standalone or hosted Blazor WebAssembly apps. God help us all. Okay. Let's see if I scroll down here. New scaffolded item. Identity. Auto-generated name. I guess. Okay, select an existing identity layout page or specify a new one. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is this. Where do I plan on hosting this? I'm gonna try to host this. So if we're using Aki.net behind the scenes, I can't really use Azure App Service, which is otherwise where I would stick it. The reason why is because Azure App Service does not allow nodes to form direct TCP connections to each other, which is what we actually need to be able to communicate back and forth with each other. That's essentially like a firewall restriction that gets imposed there. So that's a bit of a bummer. So we'll probably either do it inside Azure Kubernetes service, or we'll go ahead and just deploy it on a scale set using some small virtual machines. Be another way we could do it. If there's another lightweight container hosting option that does allow for that type of networking, we can do that as well. So let's see. This all looks perfectly terrible. I'm going to back out. Create a full identity UI source. Is this for Blazor? Pass an XRSF token. Oh. Okay, I'll open up Visual Studio for this part. This scares me too much. Alright, we're still together. I hate doing this crap. I hate doing the identity and access control stuff. But you know what? If we're going to try to make something that's like even remotely realistic, we have to do it. Okay. Scaffold identity to a Blazor server project without existing authorization. Dear God. Okay. All right. Entity framework. Yeah, sure. Why not? All right. Let's just do this. So let's see. The guide says I need to... Oh, probably the wrong window here. All right. I need to go ahead, add new scaffolded item identity add. This is basically the same as what Blazor was trying to do, probably. Except I'm sure Visual Studio will be significantly slower. Okay. Add new scaffolded item. God help us. Okay. All right. All right, Blazor. Injecting identity into our application will probably require more work than everything else we've done combined. Thanks for keeping it simple. Appreciate that. Oh. I just realized I'm sitting kind of low in my chair at the moment. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Choose false override. Oh boy. Add new data context. Dear Lord. Oh, man. Sure. Use SQLite instead of SQL Server. We'll start that for the time being. All this draw together using. Entity Framework is one of those technologies that, just generally speaking, kind of terrifies me to use in production. It's not so bad if you're working backwards from Entity Framework, meaning Entity Framework is being used to query an existing model that you have. It's not so bad. But using Entity Framework to create your database model and doing code first is extremely terrifying, particularly if Entity Framework's running database migrations. That's kind of just like not a business I really want to be in, is having all that stuff going on. But is what it is. All right, so once this is done getting scaffolded, we'll figure out how to integrate it. We'll make it so people can sign in, and that way we can try to actually get identity somewhat sort of in place throughout our application here. Let's see if we can get that up and running. This will not be as much fun as drawing things on screen with the Blazor. But in order to actually get this application up on the internet, which is where we eventually want to deploy it, we have to do this. I'm going to start with SQLite for our data layer, primarily because I don't want to have to spin up a local, let's say, app container that has SQL Server or something running inside of it. SQLite and SQL Server are similar enough in terms of the types of T-SQL syntax they allow that we can switch those out pretty easily from our local environment to our production one. So I figure in the short run, this should help make us a little bit more productive. Oh, of course. That's just fantastic. All right, let's try that again. Jeez. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, we might have to give that another try and resharper if that doesn't work. Oh, God. Maybe I should have kept my bourbon tonight. I don't know. Oh, gosh. All right. Visual Studio is down for the count. Ah, it's because it's being locked by another process. Well, okay. Yeah, terminate. That was probably my fault after all. Visual Studio was innocent this entire time. All right. I'll try rescaffolding the UI. Let me just go ahead and compile everything and make sure that we're in the clear. Okay, let's go ahead. Scaffold. Yes, let's do that again. Override all files, data context class. Here we are again. Do that. Okay, let's give that another shot. I think the problem was that my old instance of the application inside not ReSharper, Rider was still running. I think that's what my problem was. So that as a result of that, that locked some of the object files the scaffolder needed. So I shut down Rider. I'll open it back up as soon as this appears to be done. But funnily enough, Rider's scaffolding looked pretty much right on with what Visual Studio does. So maybe I would have gotten the exact same outcome there. I'm not really used to using these tools that much on either platform. Okay. Well, this looks promising. All right, now where's all my stuff? Okay. Why don't we just be nice? Okay. You know what? I guess I should probably really delete that on the client. Yeah. All right. Get rid of it there. Installing TypeScript for improved IntelliSense, it says. All right. Bunch of analyzers. Successfully installed TypeScript typings. All right. And in areas, identity hosting startup. Draw together user. Options sign in, require confirmed account. Defaults to false. Add default identity. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Identity user. Well, that's not so bad. Okay. Let's go ahead and peek definition here. All right. What properties do you have? ID, security stamp, username. That's basically it, huh? Okay. 88 references to draw together user. Really? Oh, God. Okay. Let me go back to here. Configure services, draw server context. Add default identity. Draw together user. A set of common identity services the application, including a default UI, token providers, and configures authentication to use identity cookies. In order to use the default UI, the application must be configured using blah, blah, blah. A bunch of stuff. Returns the identity builder. All right. And then so I can add entity framework stores. Is there a way to add a custom store? Interesting. Okay. I might be able to go ahead and spoof this without using identity framework then. Add sign-in manager. Add user validator. Personal data protection. Claims principal factory. Well, that all sounds pretty exciting. Okay. So I added all that. The identity is configured in that hosting startup. Right. Pass an XSRF token to the app. Let's see. The identity is logout endpoint. Okay, that's fine. Enable authentication. Add Razor pages. This is kind of what I wanted to see here. All right. So let me go ahead and add this token provider for Blazor. So I'll go down to startup. And something should be happening, right? If using token provider, which I guess we're not, pass tokens to a Blazor server app. All I'm just doing is authentication. What do I need that for? Okay. I want to be able to go back to using our random name service, but I don't know if this will play nice with me. Let me go ahead and just say, let's see if I go to paint for argument's sake. How do I go ahead and require authentication for this component? The call use authentication and use authorization. Map Razor pages. Okay, I can do that. Go to startup.cs. Got it. All right, that looks good. Use database error page. I think I needed to, so it says I need to add Razor pages up there too. Wait a minute, this has to appear where exactly? All right. So this needs to appear between somewhere between use routing and use endpoints. Okay, that's whatever, fine. All right. That all looks good. Okay. Then layout and authentication flow changes. To add a redirect to login component to the app shared folder and root. So I should go ahead and add this. Add a login display component to the app shared folder. All right. Christopher, you haven't done any of this before. Identity scares the hell out of me too. So, we're looking, so on SDK Bin, which is like our e-commerce platform, so we've got basic forms authentication that's implemented using pretty much all this entity framework stuff here. I'm looking to go ahead and migrate that to Azure Active Directory B2C, just because this whole, like you said, Christopher, this scares the shit out of me. So if I can avoid being responsible for it, I will. And I think Azure B2C is free for up to 250,000 users. And given that our users are paying customers, it'd be, how to put it, a good problem for us to have. Okay, so you haven't done this in Razor, so you're learning with me. Well, that makes me feel good. All right. So I need to go ahead and find, is it an import.razor? Nope. Nav menu. Which component is it? Add or redirect a login component in the app shared folder. Oh, whoops. That's what I got to do. Okay, so let's do that. All right, draw together. I'm going to go ahead and go back to Writer because it treats me better. Writer makes me feel good. Visual Studio makes my computer feel inadequate about its performance. All right. Let's pull that up. Okie doke. This should take just a second. All right, let's go to the shared folder. Let's go ahead and add our Razor component. Maybe I need to give Writer just a second to load those templates there. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do add. Blazor component. We'll go ahead and call this redirect to login. Yeah. Identity account login return URL. Uh-oh. It's complaining about something down here. What are you unhappy about? Areas, identity, pages, layout.cs. Aha. Pages, shared layout. This is what it's complaining about. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and do pages, areas, identity, pages, accounts, manage. Nope. That's what I meant. Okay, that should fix that. If identity doesn't scare you, you're not doing it right. That's exactly how I feel. 100%. Okay, that looks good. Add a login display component to the app shared folder. Okay. All right, let's give that a try. Now, if this requires more token crap. Nope, don't want to move a folder. I'm good. What are you angry about? All right. Let's go ahead and add new Blazor component. And what do they call this in the little tutorial up here? They called it a login display. Okay. All right. That seems simple enough. Oh. Let me try that again. Inject token provider. Ah, nuts. They really want me to add this token provider thing. Okay, fine. All right, fine. We'll do it. Okay, I gotta add this to the pages host as HTML, whatever it's called, file. All right. Have it your way. You win. Pages. You start. Layout. Did this thing totally blow up my login page or something? Like, did this scaffolder just go berserk here? All right, let's take a look. No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, where's my host page? I feel like this thing blew up. Yeah, I feel like this thing kind of blew up my little host area to some extent. Pages, account, areas, identity. Yeah, I thought I had a host page somewhere in here. Oh, God. This is my host page. In the pages / host h whatever file. Okay. But I don't think I have one of these. So why would it ask me to insert things into a page that doesn't exist? So this is basically where my Blazor stuff is. It's all here. Okay, well, I'll do my best. Page. Yeah. Whatever. That should be fine. Oh, that's great. What the hell is any of this crap? Is that where that goes? Where's this token provider stuff I think he was asking about? Dude, I don't know what this thing's asking for, but I'm deleting it. You can go to hell, man. Get out of here. Done with you. Okay. It just seems weird that there are these magic names that it simply knows what to redirect to under certain scenarios. Yeah, Microsoft's made identity, in my opinion, in their attempts to simplify it, have made it very convoluted. So I'm not totally sure how any of these things are supposed to actually work. Cannot resolve simple context. So that's no good. Where the hell is this token provider supposed to come from? Where's any of this stuff supposed to come from? Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Man, good grief on all this crap. Create the full identity UI source. Disable a page. Yeah, where's this token provider stuff? Let's see. If using the token provider, register the service. I thought we talked about this. No, we do not want to do that. Layout and authentication flow changes, right? Right. Okay, you know what? Maybe I'll just give this a shot and not mess around with this crap. I think you need to check the Blazor WebAssembly standalone section of that page. All right, I'll say, look, you're probably right. Create the full identity UI source. Oh. Okay, let's take a look at this. Authentication, Blazor WebAssembly authentication. Add a package reference to this. Okay. Do I have a reference to this? Let's go ahead and just do that. Let's install that. Okay, let's see if this fixed login display.razor at all. Okay, hey, that's great. Find this type on NuGet.org. Okay, well, that was a waste of everyone's time. Get rid of that. Okay, well, at least context appears to be working. Hallelujah. Get rid of our cross-site forgery token for the time being. So I guess that won't be totally secure. All right. Well, that was a good suggestion, Christopher. Thank you. Let's see. Add this to the imports.razor file. No, you don't. Okay, there we go. Got that imported. And then this is some of the stuff we messed with last time. Trying to implement some of this on the client side. All right. Blazor server project template. Let me go back. Okay. Add a tag helper. Yep. And the main layout component, add login display to the top div element. All right. Let's go ahead and give this a try. God help us all. Okay. Let's see where we're at. An error has occurred. Cannot provide a value for property authorization policy provider on type Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components Authorization Authorized View. So we must be missing a piece of dependency injection, probably in the standalone app would be my guess. So let's go here. Okay. Right. So I need to go ahead and handle authentication from Signal R in Blazor. Is that what this is telling me? What was the point of all this stuff? What's the point of having any of this if that does not work? Yeah, what's the point of any of this stuff? What a crock of shit. All right, let's see what's going on with this stuff. Pass tokens to Blazor server app. Not into it. Don't really want to do it. Is this what I've got to do? So like this app's referencing things like the host.cshtml file, but like I don't actually have access to that. Like our scaffolding was all done totally without that. Let's see. Yep. All right, let's take a look at this template. This is the same template that I was using. Let's go ahead and create a new project. Just out of curiosity here, since I think a big part of the tutorials for Blazor server, without being sure, I'm got no doubt that there's go ahead and do a new Blazor directory here. All right. And let's see, let's go ahead and do a Blazor server app. Configure services, server-side Blazor. Comes with app.razor, imports.razor. This is basically what we created. Pages, host.cshtml. Okay. Blazor server. Go ahead and do name, test Blazor. Okay. Let's go ahead and try opening that up. Yeah, go ahead and do open Blazor. Let's give this a shot. Open that in a new window. Okay. There's got to be something missing from my setup that is included in here. Okay. That all looks pretty straightforward. Shared pages. Okay, well, I think I see the problem here. The problem appears to be that the way the solution I initially scaffolded was set up, all of that basically has the Blazor UI and ASP.NET as two separate solutions. So maybe that's what I've got to go ahead and try changing. Actually, let me double check. Maybe I'm missing here. Yeah, that might be it. It might be the structure of my solution that's kind of part of the problem here. All right, let's try scaffolding the solution into here. And... new scaffolded item. All right, let's go ahead and run all this. All that appeared to work really well, scaffolding directly from Rider, by the way. I'm pretty impressed with that. I think Rider can really give Visual Studio a run for its money. I'm pretty impressed so far. I'll put it this way. It's been a lot easier to add new Blazor components and do all that stuff. The UI for Rider's been a lot better. The other thing I've been working with a lot is I've been working with like C#9 and record types and all that, and Rider's support for that, you know, including ReSharper support, is just second to none. That's been working really well. Okay, so I got to add all the same crap I just did all over again. Okay, well, let me see how fast I can get through that. Go to startup.cs. Got to add these two. Add that. I have to go to, let's see. I'm just basically adding components here that I already added. Let's see, just go ahead and add existing item. Go to repositories, drawtogether.net. Let me go ahead and just add redirect to login. Copy. We'll go ahead and just copy both of those. That looks good. And then look at login display. Using directive is not required. Okay, that's interesting. Let's go to main layout. Let's go ahead and do, yeah, sure. And then there was something I needed to do in here in host.cs, if I recall correctly. That's just for tokens, I guess. Maybe I don't need that. Okay, let's go ahead and try running this. Failed to bind to address because it's already in use. Ah, well, that would certainly do it, wouldn't it? Let me go ahead and do... Yeah, let me go ahead and just turn this off in my other UI here. Okay, that should be done. Okay. It's fine. Let's go ahead and do resume. Let's go ahead and start again. Authorization requires a cascading parameter of type authentication state. Consider using a cascading authentication state to supply this. Okay, well, this is getting somewhere at least. Let me go ahead and Google that. Move this over. Get rid of some of those. You typically don't use authentication state provided directly. Use the authorized view component or ask authentication state provided later in this article. Log username. Using the authorized route view. This is an app.razor. Okay, let's give this a try. Go to app.razor. In the app component. Let's see an app component. Okay, well, give this a try. Let's go ahead and run this again. Could not copy. Ah. All right. That'll work. All right. Consider using cascading authentication state to supply this. Okay. Go and do Shift F5. That should kill it. Build solution. All right. I think this is still going to fail. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't running an old build. Okay. Okay, so that failed again. All right. Getting the hang of this with Rider. Got to do Shift F5 to kill the process. Okay, so why would this router program.assembly before exec messages? Does this go inside the router? Do they screw up on their documentation here? Nope, this goes... Oh my god, I'm an idiot. I've got to wrap the router inside of this. Okay, jeez. Okay. Okay. I think I got to do the authorized route view like that. Try that again. All right. Well, now it's not stopping me from actually doing anything. And it looks like the scaffolding tool did not work particularly well generating the UI here. Oh my gosh. That's honestly kind of funny. Oh, okay. Well, that's on Microsoft. So we're gonna have to go ahead and, in my opinion, I think we need to basically consolidate the server and the client app together into a single code base and then apply these changes. That'll get us to a place where we can probably perform authentication and authorization in sort of a combined context that way. That's what I think we're ultimately going to need to do. This is kind of hilarious that the scaffolding tools generated this, which basically failed to launch. But we'll fix that in as we would say in Los Angeles. We'll fix that in post production, right? So we're out of time for this evening. It's at the end of our 2 hours here. I'm afraid to report that I've got some real life commitments on Thursday night, so I'm not going to be able to stream. However, I am looking for someone I can guest host. So if you know anyone who's going to be doing anything cool with Blazor or Akka.net, I'd be happy to go ahead and I'll basically go ahead and host them on my channel during Thursday night stream. But otherwise, I'll plan on seeing you next week. So thank you very much for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. As always, I always have a lot of fun doing these. So thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to doing the next one of these with you next week. Thank you very much and have a great night.